So I'm at my high school graduation, about ready to walk the stage to receive my diploma. I look into the audience, and sitting in the audience is my 18-month-old daughter, Delia, and I'm 3 months pregnant with my second daughter, Monica.
My family and I came to the United States from Mexico when I was 3 years old. We settled in Oxnard in Southern California. I was the only girl. I grew up with 4 brothers, traditional Mexican family, which meant that my mother and I had to share the women's work. We had to do all the women's work, and my brothers got to share all the outside chores. It was really unfair, and it was very exhausting. When I was 15, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was pregnant with my first daughter Delia. I was told that I had to get married, and I did. When it was time to register for the new school year, in my mind, I felt that the most logical step was to register for school. I wanted so much to graduate from high school. I wanted to go to college. I knew that I wanted something for myself. And the fact that I was married and pregnant with my first daughter, I didn't see that as an obstacle. I just knew that when I received my packet to register for school, that was the next step that I needed to take. So I did. I showed up at the beginning of my junior year to register for school. I went into the gym. I was ready to register. I was also 8 months pregnant. I was big, and I tried to shuffle through the paperwork, figure out what was going to be my first class, and it was really scary to see the stares of everybody looking at me and see my classmates, my teachers, everybody staring at me. So needless to say, everybody knew how I spent my summer vacation. So one of the counselors saw me, and she came up to me. We had a short conversation, and she said, we both decided that it would probably be a good idea for me to take the semester off. So I did. I took the semester off, determined that I was going to come back at the beginning of the next semester. My daughter Delia was born. She was born in October, and in January, I was there ready to start the next semester. When I went to start my classes, one of the administrators at the school suggested that I probably should go to a continuation high school. At that time, the continuation high school was meant for kids that were at risk, or kids that had behavioral problems or had some issues. I didn't have any issues. I was an A student. I was determined to graduate with my class. I didn't want them to push me out. I wasn't going to be a dropout, and I wasn't going to be a statistic. I shared a lot of these struggles that I had with one of my teachers, Miss Gloria Barrios. And Miss Barrios was studying for the LSAT. She was going to be going to law school that year. And I would share the things that I was struggling, and she constantly encouraged me to just stay forward, stay focused, keep working really hard, just hustle and make sure that I did my work and achieve the goal of graduating from high school. She also mentioned that I should consider going to law school. She said, I've never seen anybody that fought so much to remain in school, and how you advocated for yourself. And so from that moment on, the seed was planted. So then, so that moment on, the seed was planted, and a year and a half later, I'm standing on the stage, graduated from high school. I graduated with honors and proud to graduate with my class, the Channel Islands High School class of 1978. So then, once I graduated from high school, shortly after that, while I was in high school, I was able to enroll in this program that the city of Oxnard and Oxnard College had encouraged high school kids to introduce them to college and also introduce them to the city workforce. And part of the city workforce included the Oxnard Police Department. So I enrolled. I was constantly hustling, trying to figure out ways that I could get involved in programs that would keep me in school, keep me focused on my goal to eventually go to college. So I enrolled in this program. I was accepted. I went to college in the morning. I went to Oxnard College in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I would work one of the city offices that included the Oxnard Police Department. When the program ended, I continued to work at the police department. Jobs, different student type jobs. I continued going to Oxnard College. And then at the age of 19, I realized that my marriage at the age of 15 was going nowhere. By this time, I had 2 daughters, and I needed to make a decision to get out of this bad marriage. And so I did. At 19, I became a single mom, responsible for the lives of my 2 daughters, their lives and their futures, and my future. I was lucky to have a full-time job at the police department, but it didn't have benefits. So when an opening came up at in the dispatch center, I immediately applied. It was a great paying job. It was exciting. And I thought, okay, so I can put off going to law school. I can save some money and work in dispatch. I was so excited to get that job working in the dispatch center. It had benefits. It paid well. Again, it was exciting, but it was also very grueling. It was shift work, working weekends, working holidays, mandatory overtime. It was exhausting. I remember one day coming into the dispatch center, I had already worked probably a number of consecutive shifts, and I was starting a night shift, and I walked into the dispatch center, and the room is dark, and there are 2 of my coworkers sitting at the radio console. They're both women. They're both 15 to 20 years older than me, and both of them had already been working at the police department about 15 to 20 years. I walk in completely exhausted. I look at them, and I think about my dream of going to college and going to law school. And I look at them, and I start seeing my dreams start to float away. I put my headset on, I plug it into the console, and I start sobbing. At that point, I realized that I needed to make a change, or I would remain in this position and let my dreams just disappear. So that night I spoke to one of the shift supervisors, Lieutenant Hubbard. Lieutenant Hubbard at the time was attending Ventura College of Law, a local law school. It's kind of like a night school in Ventura. And I told him about my dream of going to law school. I told him what I had gone through, and he said, "Why don't you talk to one of the administrators at the law school and just see, what it takes for you to get in." So I did just that. I created a plan. I met with the administrators, created a plan. I took a writing course, a couple of writing courses at Ventura College, and started getting ready to go to law school. I got accepted into law school, and 4.5 years later, I graduated from law school. While I was going to law school and also working at the police department, I continued to be promoted within the police department, eventually reaching the top position of communications manager. That meant that I ran the entire dispatch center. I was also responsible for a remodel of the dispatch center. After the remodel was completed and I had passed the California bar exam, I knew that the next logical step was for me to graduate from law school. I knew that the next logical step was for me to leave. I promised myself that I would never be a dispatcher with a law degree. So after 23 years of service working for the Oxnard Police Department, I retired. While I was also working at the police department, I did some internships. And one of those internships was interning at Channel County's Legal Services. Channel County's Legal Services was a legal aid organization in Oxnard that provided legal services for the poor. And there I met my mentor and future friend, Carmen Ramirez. Carmen always pushed me to think about working in immigration. She said, you know, this is an area of law that is, there's really a need for it in Ventura County. Served, you're bilingual, you have this background working at the police department. I think you would be great at that. She was right. At a number of different community-based organizations that provided legal services for immigrants, and I love the work. I love the fact that I help people in their immigration matters. So after taking an extensive immigration course, I was really reluctant in opening my own office. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody, but I didn't know what steps I needed to take to actually become a lawyer. Actually, not become a lawyer, but actually open my office. So I had a couple of friends that let me borrow an empty desk. And so I was pretty much a squatter. I was taking cases, but I didn't have an office. One of my first cases was representing an individual that was being detained at one of the immigration detention centers. It was called the Terminal Island Detention Center in San Pedro, California. I was determined to figure things out on my own because I didn't work at a law firm. I really didn't have the benefit of somebody teaching me this. So I pretty much learned it the hard way. So the first time I had to appear in court was representing this individual that was detained at Terminal Island. I didn't realize that you had to park almost a mile away before you got into the detention center. So walked into the detention center, and when I was actually inside, I was the only woman amongst a bunch of men in orange jumpsuit and shackles. I sat at the front pew at the front bench, and my client shuffled and sat next to me. I was sitting next to him, reviewing his case, and my hands were shaking. My hands were visibly shaking, and he nudged me and he said, "Hey, am I your first client?" I took a deep breath. I looked at him and I just said, "Of course not. I've handled this before." I knew I had to fake it until I could make it. So I stopped my hands from shaking. I reviewed my client's case. I represented my client and was able to get him out of custody so he can be with his family. I take these kind of cases really seriously because for a number of reasons. Number one, if you make a mistake, one of your clients could get deported. And they would be separated from their families. After I represented this client, I knew that my next step would be to hang my own shingle. So I did. I opened my own office, and after 20 years as a lawyer, almost 20 years as a lawyer, I continue to enjoy and love representing immigrants. I love the fact that I get to tell their story, why they should remain in the United States. I get to tell why the hustle and the struggles that they went through to get here and why they deserve to be here. I help them achieve their dream of living here in the United States. Looking back, I think of all the decisions I made and the direction that my life took. I missed a lot. Having my two daughters, I missed a lot in their lives. Working and going to law school, working long hours, studying long hours, I missed their birthdays. I missed many birthdays. I missed many holidays. I missed many Christmases. There were so many Christmases that I would show up on my break from working in the dispatcher wearing a uniform for an hour and a half to be able to see my daughters open their gifts. I worried about whether they would have suffered, whether they suffered because of the decisions I made, decision to leave my first marriage, the decision to start law school, and the sacrifices, not only money, but time spent away from them. But after reflecting on who they have become, my daughters have both turned out to be very resilient and very strong women. I'm glad that I took that leap of faith and I decided to pursue my dreams so that I can pave the path, pave the way for them to pursue theirs. Thank you.